Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood potato witch. Welcome to the show. We all have those games on our lists that we keep meaning to play, but for whatever reason, we just haven't gotten around to yet. I mean, the games industry has been going strong for years, there are a ton of modern and retro games to play, and who's got the time to play them all, am I right? But some games on the list really stand out. Some games make you look at them and go, geez, how have I never played this before? Can I really call myself a gamer if I haven't played it? The answer to that question is yes, by the way. Yes, you can. Being a gamer doesn't mean having played all of the top games throughout all of history. But in the interest of full disclosure, and being able to make a video, and firmly establish myself on the internet as someone whose opinion shouldn't matter because I've never played insert title here, this is my top 15 list of games that I've never played. Why top 15 instead of top 10? Well, originally I was going to do top 10, but as I started compiling the list, I realized that 10 spots just wasn't gonna cut it when it came to talking about the sheer number of games and franchises that have slipped me by over the years. Kind of embarrassing, but there you have it. Extra titles for me to cringe over my lack of familiarity with. Number 15, Until Dawn. At this point, I kind of feel like Until Dawn is the game that everyone and their dog has played. It was definitely big among YouTubers when it was first released, and for pretty obvious reasons. A cinematic game with beautiful graphics, a star cast of voices, and the fact that your choices, actions or inactions, could mean the difference between life and death for any given character? Yeah, that's prime Let's Play fodder right there. I've probably watched half a dozen people play through it by now, and there are probably hundreds more that I haven't watched, along with the many thousands of people who just played it privately. But me? Nope, never played it. I definitely want to. I bought a copy when I saw it on sale not long ago, because everything I've seen of it tells me that I'll enjoy playing it, even if I already know the story and the twists and turns of the plot, and how all the characters behave and what have you. But just because I know how a game ends, doesn't mean I don't want to experience getting to that end myself. I do plan to play it at some point. I just feel like right now I'm one of those few people who wants to, but hasn't actually yet. Number 14, Silent Hill. Any of them. Even though I had a couple of retro consoles growing up, I really didn't get into gaming until my teenage years, during the PlayStation era. So you'd think that at the very least, the first Silent Hill game would be right up my alley, since it has a cool story and was released around the time when I started to get into video games in a big way. But there's one factor that you're overlooking here. I'm a great big wuss. Much as I love watching other people play horror games, I don't tend to play them very much myself, and part of that is because I get tense very easily and have a hard time letting go of that tension once I've stopped playing. I'm bad enough for that now, but I was even worse when I was a teenager. Thus, a game that basically runs on tension is not something I would have gravitated towards when it came to playing video games, even if it was a something that I thought looked really cool and probably had a story that would grab me. The idea that there were enemies that I wouldn't be able to fight but could only run away from, the creepy distortion of reality and sanity that has always been something of a trigger of mine, it all combined into a big ball of messiness that meant I have never played any of the Silent Hill games. I've seen the movies, but, well, from what I hear, that means diddly frickin' squat when it comes to the franchise, so I don't exactly count that as having experienced any of the story for myself. One of these days I'll summon up the courage to actually play at least the first game. One of these days. Number 13, Spyro the Dragon. This may come as a surprise to people who know I got into gaming during the PlayStation era, and also to those who know that I played some of the counterpart games to the Spyro series, Crash Bandicoot, but never any of the Spyro games. It's not that I didn't have an interest in them, even back in the day. The idea of running around as an adorable purple dragon was, and still is, pretty awesome. And even if platform games aren't my go-to game genre, I can still appreciate them if the concept behind them appeals to me enough. Now, I think the biggest reason I never played anything from this series is just a matter of bad luck and bad timing. When I had the money to buy games, I couldn't find any copies, and when I found copies, I didn't have the money to buy them. It all culminated in a series that I still want to play, still think I'd have a blast playing, but that has languished near the bottom of my priority list for so long that I'm not sure if and when I'll really be able to get around to them. I'd love to, but chances are my luck will stay the same and I'll only find copies of them when I'm broke again. Until then, I'll just enjoy watching other people play them. It's not quite the same, but it'll do in a pinch. Number 12. Fallout. Any of them. Now sure, Fallout didn't really rise to mainstream prominence until Fallout 3, so not having played the first two games in the series doesn't mean quite as much, though it is something I'd like to do one of these days. But for someone who really enjoys games with deep engaging stories and uncovering hidden lore and who is also a sucker for survivalist narratives, yeah, how come I've never played any of the Fallout games yet? Well, to be completely honest, part of it is because it hasn't been until relatively recently that I even could. I don't mean for this to come across like some poor me sob story, but, well, I'm not exactly made of money. I've struggled with unemployment and health issues for years, and have spent time in recognizable poverty where buying games took a distant second place to making sure I could pay the rent and eat food. The poverty thing is no longer the case, thankfully, but the reason I mention it is because it's not easy to get games when you're broke as heck, and also when Blockbuster Video doesn't exist anymore, so you can't even rent them. So how come I haven't played them since I got better access to games? I don't know, poor time management? Number 11. Most of the Sonic the Hedgehog games. One of the systems I had as a kid was the Sega Genesis, and as was pretty much the case for every kid with a Genesis, I played a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog too. I mean, it came bundled with the system, how could I not play it? Besides, Tails was my favorite character, and I kinda think I'm alone in that opinion, but I was a kid, and foxes were awesome, and a fox with two tails who could fly was, like, exponentially awesome. So, I've played that one. I played some of the first Sonic game. I played a little bit of Sonic Generations a while ago. I enjoyed some of the old Sonic cartoons that aired on Saturday mornings in those dark, distant times of the 1990s, but any of the other games have just sort of slipped me by over the years. Some part of me thinks that might be for the best, because I've seen the mess that the Sonic franchise has become over time. Weird glitch-laden games, games that bring weird stories to play, stuff that strays extremely far from the speed-heavy side-scroller it once was. And, you know, it's okay if a franchise changes some over time. That just happens. Some styles change in popularity as time goes on, and developers might want to attempt breathing new life into something, or go in new directions, or experiment with something they think might work, even if it kind of falls flat in the end. But I'm a little bit glad I didn't stay super invested in Sonic's ongoing story, because I think, with all the weirdness, I might have just become disappointed and annoyed. This might be the only entry on this list that's a little more of a blessing than a curse. Number 10. The Yakuza games. Any of them! Yeah, get used to hearing that during this video. Here's the thing. I know that there are some of the Yakuza games that don't need to be played in chronological order to make sense of and to appreciate the story behind. I absolutely know that. But there's this little voice in the back of my brain, probably one that's related to actual OCD, that tells me that if I don't play the first one first and the subsequent ones in the correct order, I'm going to be completely baffled, or my experience with the games will suck, or I will miss some really cool context that will make everything 50 times better. This voice is annoying, and I wish it would shut up. Similar to the Fallout games, the Yakuza series has the hallmarks of everything I love in my video games. Compelling story, interesting setting, characters whose development I want to see even if they're the type of people I wouldn't want to hang around with in real life, the whole shebang. And I do have access to a bunch of them now. Just not the first one. And that lack of the first game is what's stopping me from playing any of the series. Well, that and the annoying little voice in my head. Honestly, as soon as I can get my hands on that first game, I will probably binge the entire freaking series, or at least as much of it as I can. I really think I'll like the Yakuza games, and I regret that I haven't been able to overcome my strange desire to play stuff in chronological order, so that I can better appreciate what I do have access to. Number 9. Mario Party. Any of them. Yeah, okay, you get the idea by now. Any of them. Yes, there are a lot of games I haven't played. I know, it's kind of pathetic. But here's the really pathetic part. The biggest reason I haven't played any of the Mario Party games? No friends to play them with. Okay, that sounded a bit more pathetic than I intended, so let me elaborate a little. For most of my life, there were no Mario Party games that allowed for online multiplayer. It was couch co-op or nothing. And during that time, I legitimately didn't have many friends in my area that I thought would give enough of a damn to sit and play video games with me, especially a party game, so what was the point in buying any? I had plenty of friends that would happily have done so, but they all pretty much lived in other cities, other countries, occasionally entire other continents. This was a similar problem I had with the early Pokemon games. Back in the early days of the franchise, there was no internet trading or battling. Everything had to be local. Didn't know anyone else who played? You're out of luck, kid. Have fun playing solo. And with Pokemon, that wasn't such a big deal, because even if I couldn't trade things to complete the Pokédex, there was still an entire game for me to play. Mario Party games, though? Oh look, all my friends are the game's AI as I sit alone in my room and play a game filled with minigames just for the bragging rights of saying I've played a Mario Party game. Not my scene. So, I haven't played any. And now that there are online multiplayer options, go figure, I don't own the system or the games that would allow for it. Just my luck, am I right? Number 8. Speaking of Mario games, I also haven't played Mario 64. Come to think of it, I really haven't played many Mario games at all. I played a little Super Mario World, I played Mario Bros. Back when I was a kid on the NES, and that's pretty much it, to be completely honest. One of the most famous Mario games, a game that basically redefined what a platformer could be and brought the genre into the realm of 3D? I haven't played that one. Like many of the games on this list, I've seen plenty of people play it, and I know a decent amount about it. It's hard not to when you have the internet and are interested in gaming. It's one of those unavoidable titles, and for good reason. It was, to put it mildly, a game changer. And I really ought to do the honor of actually playing it at some point. Number 7. Metal Gear. Say it with me now. Any of them! Now, yeah, I know a lot of people haven't played the original Metal Gear, and instead they got into the franchise with Metal Gear Solid. I hear the series is freaking amazing, and I have lots of friends who tried to get me to play it over the years. No real excuses with this one, I just haven't. Similar to the issue I have with the Yakuza games too, I know that the Metal Gear games feature a connecting storyline, and to just jump in the middle with a random game invites confusion and frustration as I try to pick up the threads of a narrative that was fully conveyed in a previous game that I just haven't played. But come on, me! Nearly all of the games are available right now through PlayStation Now, which you have a subscription to. What are you waiting for? They're right there! Number 6. Kirby games. All together now, any of them! Kirby games look like a lot of fun, and from what I hear, there are some delightfully messed up interpretations of game lore that underlie this franchise's outwardly adorable appearance, and yo, I am all about that. But whether you're talking about the retro games or the newer iterations, I just haven't been able to play any of them. And that's a damn shame, because as I've said before, even if they're not my preferred style of game, they still look like they'd be fun. Plus, sometimes I'm in the mood for a shorter game experience and don't always want to commit to the dozens of hours it typically takes to take on an RPG or other narrative-driven game. One of these days, you delightful little pink balloon thing. One of these days. Number 5. Any online Final Fantasy game. Okay, I mean, that's still pretty much only 11 and 14, but still. I've played every other core Final Fantasy game, and a number of the spin-offs. How have I not played 2 of the biggest MMORPGs, especially when they're a part of such a beloved series like Final Fantasy? Well, let me tell you a story. It was the early 2000s, and Final Fantasy XI was soon to be released. I used to hang out on a particular message board, and everyone there was excited. Most of us were used to playing Diablo 2 with each other, and being able to play a Final Fantasy together was going to be so freaking awesome. We were already planning what sorts of characters we'd create, what roles we would have within a group. It was going to be epic. The game's website released a benchmark program, which would let people know if their computers actually had the right specs to run the game. The benchmark program crashed my computer. Seriously, my computer was so underpowered that the damn benchmark overloaded its capabilities. There was no way I was going to be able to play Final Fantasy XI with my friends online. Not a chance. Maybe if I could have afforded a better computer, but, well, computers aren't cheap now and they weren't cheap then, and getting a new one was just out of the question. Then FF14 came along, and joy of joys, I could even play it on my PS4. Sweet, there was pretty much no way it would crash the console, since that version would have been made for the console. No worries there. Oh right, the subscription fee. Well, couldn't afford that. While I'm not fond of games that I have to both buy and pay a monthly service fee for, I do understand why it happens. Server upkeep, continued development on new expansions, yeah, I do get it. I very much understand why some games charge that, even after you drop a bunch of money just buying the game, and then more buying said expansions. I do understand. That doesn't mean I can afford to pay it. And games I can't afford to pay for are games I just don't end up playing. I know it seems a bit crass to talk about money and affordability and all that, but yeah, I'm an adult. Money is a factor of adult life. Bills win out over games, and until I can pay my bills by doing game stuff... Yeah, right. Some things are just gonna have to be put aside in favor of other priorities. It's not fun, but it is what it is. Instead, I just gaze longingly at screenshots posted by friends who play and dream of the day I can surprise them by playing alongside them and dragging down their overpowered characters with my piddly little noob. Number 4. Castlevania. Do I even really need to keep saying any of them at this point? Those who know me know that I am a bit of a sucker, pun intended, for vampires. Now, that's not to say that I like absolutely everything that has vampires in it, because there are some notable exceptions to this rule. But by and large, if you tell me that some piece of media has vampires featured pretty heavily, chances are I will be open to giving it a try. Are the Castlevania games just some sort of weird exception to this rule? Nah, not really. I still want to play them. just haven't gotten around to any yet. Part of that is because action platformers have, as I've said, never really been my genre of choice when it comes to games. Doesn't mean I'm opposed to them, not by a long shot, but it does mean that I don't gravitate towards them when I'm looking for something new to play. From what I hear though, these games should be the exception to that rule, because many people are so full of praise for this series and its aesthetic, and there is really no good reason for me to not have played them at this point. I mean, I can't even bring up the whole chronological order issue, because I've seen people play random ones before, and it looks like the vast majority of them work pretty well as standalone titles. They look fun, they look damn pretty most of the time. I think I'll enjoy the hell out of them once I actually sit down and play them. Bonus side entry, I also haven't played any Metroid games. What kind of gamer am I? Number 3. Any Zelda game that isn't Ocarina of Time. Ooh, is that the sharpening of pitchforks that I hear in the distance? Okay, yes, this one's a pretty shameful entry on the list. I'm not someone who's all, oh, Zelda games are super popular, so I'm not gonna play them just to be unique or something. Nor do I dislike the franchise or think that it's unworthy of the praise it gets. It's just... Okay, yeah, for one thing, I'm not that great at puzzle dungeons. I'm not the worst at them, but I am far from the best, and a game series that kind of thrives on puzzle dungeons can be a little intimidating for me. But okay, that's only a little bit of an excuse, because for the most part, it's not like there's some big time limit behind the dungeons, nothing I can't really take my time with and make notes on and eventually get through. Also, there's the fact that I didn't really have the chance to play any of them until I was an adult. I had an NES as a kid, but The Legend of Zelda wasn't a game I owned for it, and most of my life was dotted with non-Nintendo systems. I didn't hate Nintendo or anything, it's just that my parents bought me a Sega Genesis, and then a TurboGrafx for some reason, a PlayStation 2, I bought an old Dreamcast from a friend, I bought a secondhand N64 in high school, but that was mostly to play Pokemon Stadium. And even then, I wasn't really into video games, not like I am now. I was into a few select video games, and The Legend of Zelda really wasn't one of those franchises. I tried to get into it because someone I admired online really liked it, and that was why I played Ocarina of Time in the first place. But any of the others? I just kinda haven't. I never did get around to them. And even though there are still 2 other titles to go on this list, I think this entry is the one I'm actually most ashamed of. My excuses run thin, and by the time I'm saying, yeah, I pretty much haven't played any Zelda games, I really do start to doubt my own gamer cred. I may have played plenty of games that some people may not have even heard of, but when I haven't played games pretty much everyone has heard of, I kinda start to doubt myself. Like, a lot. Number 2. Resident Evil. Yeah, any of them. Surprise, surprise. But here's what makes this entry different than any of them one on this list. The other games I've mentioned, plus the game in the number 1 spot, I intend to play them at some point. I want to play them. But this, I will never play a Resident Evil game. Why? Because I have an intense phobia of zombies. But Potato Witch, I hear you say, zombies are supposed to be scary. They're supposed to scare you. That's the whole point. I didn't say I'm scared by them. I said I have an intense phobia of them. One that most people don't take seriously because unlike a lot of the more common phobias, zombies aren't real. Arachnophobes are afraid of spiders, and spiders are definitely a real thing. Agoraphobes are afraid of open spaces, and yeah, open spaces absolutely exist. But a phobia of zombies? How can someone be phobic of a thing that's not even real? But hey, phobias don't actually have to be of real things. In fact, the very definition of phobia states that the fear is irrational. Trying to tell me that zombies aren't real isn't going to mean a damn thing to my brain because yeah, I already know that. And no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that zombies are fake. Telling me that, telling myself that, it doesn't work because it is a phobia, not just a dislike of an intentionally scary thing. You know the difference? A fear of zombies is what makes you jump at jump scares and shudder at rotting corpses. A phobia of zombies is what keeps you awake all night, staring out the window, watching and waiting, because yeah, you know zombies aren't real, but you had a nightmare about them last night and now they're on your mind. And what if you're wrong? What if the only thing that means you can escape is those few minutes of warning you'll get when you see one turn a corner up the street? So yes, you'd better keep watch until daylight for your own safety. This actually happened to me, by the way. Mental illness sucks. I am in a better place now, thankfully. But this is why I will never play a Resident Evil game. I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to deliberately trigger a phobia and cause my mental health to slip just because people out there think that the series is a great survival horror experience. I'm sure it is, but it's not something for me and I have my good reasons for avoiding it. And the number one game I haven't played is Skyrim. Ha, I bet someone expected that I would have mentioned the entire Elder Scrolls series so I could say any of them again, but no, I spent many happy hours playing Morrowind some years back, and I have played some of Oblivion even if I haven't beaten it yet. But Skyrim, the game that's been re-released like 50 million times at this point? Nope, haven't played it. I mean, I sorta tried once. I went through the character creation process, painstakingly making the character I wanted to play as, and when it came time to name them, I pressed the wrong button, accidentally named them and then turned the game off in annoyance and frustration. I didn't want to play a character named I went through all that trouble to make a specific character, and it was ruined in one twitchy-fingered button press, and I just put the game down and never went back to it. Hey, I never claimed it was a reasonable decision. I do intend to actually play it, though. I'm not sure when, but I do intend to. I've seen my partner play through it multiple times, though, and I don't think I'll ever be able to match those 1,000 plus hours, but I really ought to play it at least once. So there you have it, my top 15 games that I've never played. Like I said, with the exception of the Resident Evil games, I do plan to play everything that's on this list. Maybe not every single game across multiple franchises or anything, but I do want to give some franchises a try, even if only for a game or two. I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I can actually afford to do so, can take the time to experience a lot of the games I couldn't afford to or had no interest in when I was younger. And maybe better patience so I don't quit after accidentally naming my character again or something. Are there any games you feel like you're one of the few who hasn't played them yet? Any games you think you'd really enjoy but just haven't gotten the time or ability to play? Let me know in the comments. We can commiserate over our failings as capital G gamers. Also, if you liked the video, feel free to click the like button, or subscribe if you want to see more content from me, because I have many more videos planned for the future. As always, friends, take care and happy gaming.